Hello, welcome back. It's Wednesday. I know it's not a normal day. We've done our virtual happy hours, but we've got a special guest that we had to reschedule because last week I lost power for a week. That's not really fun. I'm your host, Greg Avila, founder of Untappd. Excited you're here on this Wednesday for our virtual happy hour. I want to bring in my guest, Matt Galligan, who's a good friend of mine, been a longtime Untappd user and an advisor in the early days. Matt, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Super excited. Well, we always talk about beer here. That's what we're going to talk about to get started. I'll go first with what I'm having tonight. This is a beer from your neck of the woods. This one is called Lost in the Remix Pina Colada. It's in double IPA with toasted coconut, pineapple, and vanilla. This is from Lost Tavern out of, they have two locations, right, Matt? It's in Allentown and somewhere else. Is that right?
Hellertown and Bethlehem. They're based in Hellertown, though.
Nice.
It's a tiny little spot.
Very cool. What are you drinking on your side of this?
Well, so Lost Tavern is like the thing that I love around here. It's one that I found shortly after moving here and have been obsessed ever since. So this is their We Talking About Practice.
That's a great beer.
And this is Allen Iverson doing the famous step over here. And if you can believe it, that was 19 years ago when he did that. But it's it is a double IPA, kind of juicy New England style, and it is amazing.
Yes,
I think you gave this one a try too. I think you liked this one.
I did. Yeah, this was one of my favorites that I tried from them. I actually gave it a really high rating from an Untappd perspective. I thought it was a great double IPA juiciness. What do you think about the beer from your side? Obviously, you've had it maybe a few times, I'm assuming, but what would you give it from a rating perspective on Untappd, and would you recommend it to your friends?
This for me is a solid, I think I started out thinking 4.25, and after a little while, kind of really sitting with it, it's definitely squarely 4.5 for me. I tend to, my ratings, I tend to be a little bit generous anyways. And so it's pretty hard for me to 4 tends to be my baseline. At the end of the day, I'm like, it's a beer. It's delicious, and so 4.5 means that it's excellent. About the only things that have hit higher than that for me, they have a few at 4.75, but Treehouse, Trillium, those guys can get way up there. But yeah, this is a solid 4.5 for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I took a picture of it with next to a nice little basketball here, put it up on the screen. I want to see here. This is an amazing beer. Really excited to try this one. So if you're out there right now and you're having your beer, we'd love to hear about what you're drinking in the comments section. So we'll crack open your beer here. Hopefully this is not going to explode on me because this has been in the fridge for a little while. Okay, all right, we're good. We're safe. It's
excellent.
Extremely foamy, but a little bit juicier. Make sure you check in your beer on Untappd and tag the venue Untappd at home. It's a great way for you to actually let everyone know where you are and you're being safe with everything that's going on in the world today. We have over 25 million check-ins almost on the Untappd at home venue, so we'd like you to continue to grow that number out there. And pour it. But I've had a good streak here of doing good pours. Obviously, this one not so much.
Man.
Yeah. But cheers to all you guys out there watching, and enjoy your beverage.
Cheers.
Wow, that is incredible. Holy smokes. Usually a lot of times you talk about beers that has coconut or something else in it. That it's more of a descriptor than an actual flavor. It's so flavorful. It tastes like a pina colada. I mean, it's unbelievably very candy in that situation. So
it's
very good.
So good. They've done that a couple of times now, and the first time they did it, I was just like, oh my God. This is incredible.
Really, really incredible. And obviously the can artwork is amazing. We just showed the picture on your side of the can there. That's awesome artist there. I love how if you look really closely, it says Seekers on the jersey instead of the Sixers. But I believe you told me over Instagram that is one of their IPAs. The names of their other standard IPA. Is that right?
Yeah, and actually they have a little logo and a guy with a lantern. That's their Seeker guy, and so the Seeker is their flagship IPA. Yeah,
very good. Very good. Well, let's get right into it here. Obviously, we talked in the opening. We've known each other for a long time, Matt. You've been an early advisor to Untappd. But in case you give a quick background of your history when it comes to beer and some of your entrepreneurial stuff that you've been involved with.
Yeah, totally. So I'm a founder a number of times, a couple different companies. Started out doing social networking stuff, and then geolocation, and then news, and then crypto. I've kind of done all sorts of different things, always with a product or a design mindset. That's always been my game. And I remember we got connected a long time ago. I think this might have been when I was doing the geo stuff. But as you got Untappd started, I want to say, I mean, it was very, very early days when we started chatting. But have always been into, building things, solving problems, trying to, come up with some sort of cool new design for things, that kind of thing. Today, I work for a company based out of New York. I've been remote for quite a while now, a couple years, focused on design. But startup world is still where I hang my hat.
Absolutely. When we first had a conversation, I believe the first time we met was in New York at the Pony Bar, the old location on the west side. And, we had a beer and we kind of talked about it. And, Matt has been, very helpful in the early goings of Untappd. When we launched in 2010, early on, it was just two guys. We didn't really know too much about the landscape that we were getting into. And never in a million years did I think we'd be where we are today in terms of users and check-ins. So it was nice to have a sounding board from Matt's perspective, being really big into beer, understanding the landscape of a startup, and obviously understanding what we needed to hit and what we needed to do. So it was quite an interesting journey. And now we're here, I guess.
I remember the Pony Bar, we were connected for some time prior to that, and we were kind of just, jamming on ideas and in different things. But then all of a sudden, like, opportunity happened to be in New York. Hey, let's get together. Let's make it happen. And then, there we are sharing a beer, Pony Bar. I remember the barrels, was, where you sat and had the drinks. And that was awesome. Great memories. But yeah, man, I remember those early days, like, just you guys, cheers for sticking it out, because, the landscape at the time for, say, ratings or connection around beer was, very kind of old and stodgy and kind of prim and proper. And, you had to, give all of your various vectors of your ratings to, like, it's like, no, we just want to be beer drinkers and be social about it. It's like, I wanted the beer festival vibe to come into an app. And I think that's what you guys did. So kudos for that.
Thank you. All right. Well, if you're watching out there and then you want to ask Matt a question, maybe you want to ask some of the early advice that we asked him, or you want to get him on the hot seat, asking about what his favorite brewery is in Pennsylvania, maybe either one of those questions, use the chat on your platform that you're watching, Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, and we'll put them on the screen, hopefully, and get him on the hot seat and get him some good questions. But ultimately, I'll start here. We were talking before the show about the breweries in Pennsylvania, and, you only live there for a short period of time, but you mentioned that they've definitely increased in a huge amount over the last couple of years. Talk us through some of your favorite breweries in the area that just are not everyone's radar right now because maybe they're small, but definitely have changed the landscape when it comes to drinking beer out there. Totally.
So for a little bit of background, I kind of got my start in Colorado. So incredible beer scene in Boulder, Denver. Moved to California for 10 years in San Francisco, obviously, kind of Mecca, if you will. Right. So then coming here was like, I knew nothing, like not much about East Coast beers, breweries, all that. And over the couple of years that I've been here now, there have been some serious standouts locally here. Lost Tavern, obviously, a little bit on the smaller side, but they are, I hope they're just going to explode because I think they have every reason to. Tired Hands, a little bit bigger. Some folks might know them, but they're just freaking incredible and consistently churn out amazing stuff. Imprint, IMPRINT, newer, couple years old at this point, but producing some of the most insane fruited sours that I've ever had. I mean, consistency of literally like drinking a Jamba Juice kind of thing. So it's kind of wild, but like will blow your mind. And then what else? Like, I would say that Warwick Farm is another one, like really small, but like producing some really cool stuff. Free Will is another one that's done some good things. I'm constantly blown away by what's been available out here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the things we talked about before, just the amount of brewers growing, even in this situation that we have with COVID-19 and whatnot, it's incredible to see that growth. And also not just growth, but quality. I mean, these brewers are putting out really, really good beers across the board. Tired Hands is a big fan of that all along the East Coast. People think of that as well. But even Lost Tavern, when you showed me some of these beers they're having, I had never heard of them before. And these are great, great brewers that I think the world needs to understand and go. But there's a question from the chat here that I want to bring up. It's unrelated to beer, but this one is from Red bag red dirt. Nice guitars do you play? I was going to say that earlier, but now we have someone asking it. Yeah, a lot of good guitars in the background. Are you an avid player?
I do play. Yeah, I've played for a good long while, since I was probably 16 years old. Yeah, I would say I need to play a little bit more, get more use out of these guys. But for sure, it's a passion of mine. Plus, they look good on the Zoom call.
They do.
You know,
it's a great backdrop from that perspective there. Yeah, obviously, one of the things we talked about earlier on in the show is that Pennsylvania is known specifically for Philadelphia. I think a lot of people don't look outside that area because of the vast number of breweries that are in that area. From that perspective, what do you think is the main reason why a lot of breweries are shifting more western part of the state? Pennsylvania is a very tough state from an alcoholic perspective. Many liquor laws that kind of prevent a lot of things, from growler fills to ordering beer. From that perspective, what's your take on why it's grown more western state now as Philadelphia has grown as a whole?
Well, I think you just start to establish trends, and those trends pick up, and then they move to wherever they need to go. They disperse, and so you see breweries like Brew Gentlemen, which I unfortunately have not had the pleasure of trying yet, but I'm hearing incredible things, and they're out in the Pittsburgh area. Right. And you forget sometimes just how vast this state is. I mean, I think it's like 5 some odd hours for me to even get over to Pittsburgh. So I haven't been able to try that. Yeah. But it is cool to see so many more pick up. I mean, Pittsburgh is a big city. Philly is just like proximity to New York. And so obviously it's going to kind of hit the trends a lot sooner than elsewhere. And now that it's kind of there, it's going everywhere. But look at what's happening everywhere else across the country. You have the most random places, in rural towns that are getting the most insane breweries. So I don't know, it's that's something that didn't happen 20 years ago, I don't feel like, or that would draw just the insane fervor that some of these have had.
Yeah, I'm putting something on the screen here. This is a great brewery for an example that you just talked about in Iowa. This small little town in Iowa has this amazing brewery that produces amazing beers. And we had them in our virtual festival earlier this, a couple months ago. And, we did this thing every year called the 7-City Tour. And obviously not doing it this year because of COVID-19. But what we tried to do is that the top 7 cities in the United States, we would actually go visit them and have events there. And this little town that probably has the population is not even anywhere close to the number of check-ins that occurred, you skyrocketed. They had a stout release that people flew in from all over the place. So you had these big cities like Denver, you had Richmond, Virginia, you had Charlotte, North Carolina. And you had this city here, DeGrath, Iowa, on this platform, just having tons of check-ins from the situation. So unfortunately, dropped out of the top 7 by the end of it. They weren't able to sustain that kind of elasticity. But it's amazing to see, like you mentioned, these small towns having these really local flavors and local kind of people coming in and producing great, great beer. And now this beer is actually available in my own home state in Connecticut. So it's great to see that kind of small town kind of brewery coming to a small town to growing from that perspective. And that's what a lot of breweries are doing too as well in Pennsylvania.
When I was living in California, I want to say about 3 or so odd years ago, maybe a little bit more, it was an event that you could get Pseudo Sue in San Francisco. I mean, it was literally an event, and I had to kind of go through all kinds of hoops to get it. And then now I can pop down to my local Wegmans grocery store and get, I've picked up King Sue there. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Just consistently great beers, tiniest little brewery, or something you would not have heard of so long ago. But yeah, it's amazing. And I had a friend just pick up some Treehouse for me the other day, and it's I couldn't tell you where that is. It's somewhere in Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's in Western Massachusetts. Yeah, it's about,
I don't know,
45 minutes from my house. So that's all I know about it. So, I mean, it's crazy to see that kind of growth from that perspective. Living in New York City for many number of years, you'd go to other half and you wait in line for these beers. And, you'd ask yourself from a 5 years ago, would you wait in line like an iPhone for beer? Because literally that's what you're doing nowadays, which is interesting. Obviously that's not happening anymore with COVID. A lot of it's been done online and kind of curbside pickup, but that was the thing. I remember seeing pictures of people camping out for other half releases, getting the sleeping bag, getting the tents there. I wonder, what's going to happen to that kind of mentality once the COVID-19 lifts. Is it going to be still a delivery online perspective kind of pickup because that's much easier, or is it going to be back to the haze craze or the waiting in line as the cool thing to do that? What are your thoughts on that as we kind of try to push COVID here?
The first time I ever waited in line for a beer was Black Friday, waiting for Goose Island Bourbon County Brand Stout, and that was at City Beer Store in San Francisco. And I think that was all the way back in like 2013 or something like that, 14 maybe. And that seemed insane to me. Like, I waited in line for like a Nintendo before, but like for a beer, are you kidding me? And then now it's just such a regular, or was such a regular thing. Having said that, what I like about the online sales is that it sort of provides that opportunity to anybody that wants to get the beer, but like can't necessarily wait in line for that period of time, or doesn't want to just like show up at 5 a.m. to be able to get it. And so like the example brewery that I gave earlier, Imprint, they consistently sell out like shortly after opening. And because all the online sales were happening, I was able to go on like, here's the case that I want to buy, and then went down on a leisurely stroll to the brewery, picked it up, and it was great. Having said that, I do know that there is definitely this like almost like festival like vibe that can happen with some of these releases. Yes. And I think it's awesome. I want to see those things come together, right? If they can figure out like, hey, sell, this cohort, right? And here's this hour, and all these people are going to be here for that hour. I like the efficiency that provides. I have been helping out a little bit with Lost Tavern setup on Square, just because they super easy platform, get on Apple Pay, checkout, done. And I love that from a consumer standpoint. I just hope that we do get back to a day where we have that sort of like big come together moment of, everybody excited about that thing.
It's interesting because, I remember the first time I was in other half waiting in line for beer, and I waited there for about 3 to 4 hours. And I remember as I got to the close of the line, I looked inside and I saw, man, there's a lot of beer in there. And I look behind me and there's no line. I'm like, oh man, what did I do? I think that there's definitely an opportunity to be seized here from a technology perspective. Obviously, there's a lot of opportunity here from getting beer to people's hands faster, but obviously there's a lot of laws and restrictions on that. Want to go back to Treehouse earlier because a lot of comments about Treehouse in the question right now. Treehouse is in Charlington, Massachusetts, and it's an amazing brewery. It's one of the most unique places I've ever been. It's one of the largest breweries too. I'm going to pull their screen up here for their ratings. They have a 4.36. That's very, very high for an entire brewery itself. But the brewery is crazy. They've got an amazing, huge double decker in a sense building. They've got a huge pergola that has wood fire grill pizza out there in the summer times, and a huge lounge chair. It's a great area. The rumor is, and somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, is that the area they're in was going to be a Walmart, and they ended up not signing the deal for it. Wow. So they have like 2 levels of parking lots because of how big the Walmart was supposed to be. So you can park in the lower deck, and they actually have like gator vehicles that come and get you and bring you to the brewery and stuff like that. So it's an incredible situation. But again, the same thing with the lines at Treehouse as well. They really have a good system. Obviously, when they're open right now, it's all online. You pick it up, but you walk in there. They've got separate lines for drafts, separate lines for for bottles and or cans. They only do cans at this time, so it's a pretty cool system. You check it off in a box, you bring it up. Huge little tap room there, overlooks the entire brewery. It's a really great place to visit. It's in the middle of absolutely nowhere, so it's not like you're going to be going there to do stuff, but it's definitely on your way if you're going from Providence to Boston or etc. It will be in the way in the Western Massachusetts area. So I highly recommend checking that out because it's definitely a really cool place from that side as well.
Juice Machine. Have you had Juice Machine?
I have not had Juice Machine. No, that's one of the best. But
it's the best IPA I've ever had.
Yeah, King Julius. I've had Julius, one of my first beers from there. That is definitely highly recommended. If you go to actually the Treehouse website, actually they have a list of all the beers that they sell, and they put them in packs, and they made them up to like rainbows. They put all the colors together. It's a really cool thing. But if you're not near the brewery, you probably don't visit the website because you get so jealous you can't actually get those beers there. But yeah, it's a great place to check out. Highly recommended here. Here's another question from Jamie, and Jamie asks, favorite Northern California brewery? You talked about being in the area. What would be your kind of your go-to pick there from Northern California?
So I'm going to give you a tie. I'm going to go old school, new school. Old school, favorite old school is Russian River. Just insane beers. Back in the day, just consistently pumping out. I mean, Pliny the Elder, obviously like the king of double IPAs.
Yep.
But then I was super into their sours, but way before sours were a thing, or at least that were kind of democratized and everybody was into them. Because they did it the old school way, real funk and a lot of time, and none of this kettle sour stuff. And so Temptation and Consecration, all those amazing stuff. New school, I would say field work is just they were started. If I got the story right, started by the brewer that did what was it? Sculpin, grapefruit Sculpin, down at Ballast Point, I think broke off and then started field work. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's what the story was. But that was my first foray into the East Coast style, or sort of the Northeast style IPAs, and was just like, yes, this is super good. So those two, Russian River and field work, are probably my favorites.
Yeah, I love Fieldworks. I just had a chance to try it. This was my check-in to Video Armageddon. This one was insane. Nice. I gave it a 4.75. That's pretty high from that perspective there. One of our employees that works for Untappd is in our product division. She had sent me a bunch of beers from San Francisco, so I was enjoying a lot of that last week. Highly recommend Fieldworks. That's a really, really good beer from there. Really enjoyed that one. Want to throw this comment up on the board here from Max. This is hilarious. There's no exit for Charlton on I-90, which is Mass Pike in the area there. So I spent a good chunk of time on back rows to get the brewery. 100% true. The I-90, which runs east to west in Massachusetts, is the main interstate for there. But there's no exit. They have exits every 20 miles. Very unique from a highway perspective. So you have to get off on an exit. I believe it's Route 20, 15 miles from the brewery, and then you got to drive down there and then finally get in there. And it's so busy in that area that the exit or the entry to the brewery, they won't only take a left turn to get back on the highway. They can take a right turn, go back down, and then do a U-turn around and come back around. And some of the local businesses don't want you to do the U-turn in their own thing. So they have all these signs up there. It's all because of a brewery, folks. This is not a traffic issue. This is a brewery causing all these things there. So it's a very, very cool thing. From that perspective, I want to highlight that, Max. Thanks for your question. But yeah, it's pretty nuts, and definitely recommend it when obviously things lift from that side. One of the interesting things about beer that I find, I was talking to new folks in different areas, is kind of the culture of the brewing industry out there. Obviously, we're always pushing for diversity and inclusion and having people of different perspectives. What is your flavor or your perspective of that in Pennsylvania, in the area you are? Are you seeing some diverse options in the area, or just still a work in progress from the breweries out there?
I think it is. I think it's always going to be a work in progress. I think that this was, as far as diversity goes, it's always been a real, I go to a brewery event, I go to a festival. It's like a lot of guys that look like me, and that's kind of what beer has been. And I think that seeing some change in that has been great. I think seeing what's going on with the Brooklyn brewery efforts and to try to fund new breweries started by sort of minorities and things. I know that there is a handful of breweries out here in Pennsylvania that are kicking off that are minority led. Excited to see that happen. But yeah, it's look, this has been, it's been such a us looking dominated industry for so long.
Yes.
And I think that it's good and nigh time that we see some change there, and see some new things.
Absolutely. And we had Julia Hers, which was a former director of the craft brewer program, on last night talking a little bit about this as well. It's great to see people like Brooklyn Brewery and Garrett Oliver have those initiatives to kind of invest in those times. I mean, 2020 is an odd area. I mean, obviously, with everything happening in the world, and it just seems like a perfect time to kind of get this right and try to move the needle forward. So I'm excited to see that those areas there. Speaking of COVID, obviously we always talk about that on the show because it's always top of mind from everything that's happening. Pennsylvania is traditionally a very tough state, like I mentioned, from an alcoholic perspective. Are they allowing the breweries in Pennsylvania to ship directly to customers now, or is it only curbside and delivery? What is the kind of lay of the land there from a COVID perspective?
Honestly, I've kind of been blown away. Yes, shipping within the state has been opened up. One of the first things that I did was there's a brewery down in Pennsylvania called Levante, which was one of the first to do shipping. And as long as your order was over 75, you got free shipping. And so you basically got a case, and then here it shows up. And that was a great experience. And so, seeing the combination of curbside plus delivery, that has been really cool to see. I would say, kind of like crowlers and stuff like that has been really popular. Obviously the additional cost of that new crowler every time, all that can kind of add up, but I think it's been great. And I think I see that trend continuing. More and more canning, more and more shipping. It's something that allows me to experience beers that I would not otherwise be able to get to have, because I'm not going to be able to drive to say 3 hours to go pick something up.
Absolutely. I want to put this comment up on the board. I think I know this individual, Brian O'Neill, said no mention of Sellermaker. You used to live next door. Brian, I think we all know who you are, but he's calling you out here, Matt, and he's saying Sellermaker is another great brewery in San Francisco. I think I actually went there with you when I visited you in San Francisco. Long time ago.
You did.
So that's a great one, and thank you for calling him out, Brian.
So Brian brings up a very good point. I actually literally used to live half a block away from Sellermaker, and they pumped out some of the most amazing IPAs. There's no question about that. At the time, I was still like a fieldwork fan, but nowadays these guys are legendary, which is crazy because they're brewing out of the tiniest little space in a neighborhood place where at the time they were struggling just to keep up with the draft lines in the brewery. And so I think Sellermaker is a great thing to mention. I can't help but mention that we're I already cracked this second one.
There you go, right.
Greg, this is insane. I wish you had this one. They don't release this one. I got the hookah. They don't release this one until Saturday, but this is the blueberry lemon meringue pie, fruited sour. That's incredible. And it's just out of control. So I feel like I'm having dessert over here. So cheers to that.
Very cool. Well, obviously, you're from the Midwest. That's your original entry there. What Midwestern breweries come to top of mind for you in terms of, ones that maybe people know a little bit about, but are ones that are memory of your earlier days in the Midwest?
So the one that I have to call out is Schlafly, Schlafly. And they were the ones that really got me into craft beer in a meaningful way. My first craft beer was Flying Dog's Old Scratch Amber Ale. But then after that, it was all Schlafly. And to this day, their pumpkin ale is still the best I've ever had. And I just constant fond memories, constantly trying to find their stuff. I can now finally find it in Pennsylvania. I can still awesome. Still get it. So it's that's the one. That's the one that I'll always go back to.
Yeah, one of their pumpkin ale is one of their most popular beers that they make there. Obviously, really close to a 4.0 rating for almost 150,000 check-ins have gone through. So definitely a high-quality beer from that perspective. Unfortunately, we don't get this on the East Coast that much. They haven't broke through, but hopefully, typically how it works in my history I've seen, they'll start in Pennsylvania and they'll work their way up the Northeast coast there. So hopefully, being in Pennsylvania now, hopefully they'll make their way up there, because I've had anything from these guys and I've heard them talked about a lot from that perspective on there. So very exciting stuff on that front. One of the crazier parts of beer is the fact that it's so distributed differently. A lot of people always ask the question, well, if a major company like a Budweiser just stopped shipping to one part of the country, would it become craft? And obviously we know that's not going to be true from that perspective, but beer is one of the only things from a data perspective, also location, it's hard to map because you have things like bottle shares. Like, you come to my house, you bring a bunch of beers and you'll be all good from that perspective. So that's a great way to kind of share the data across the board and being able to have that information readily available in your fingertips in the Untappd app.
Totally.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, Matt, we want to thank you so much for your time, man. And we appreciate you coming up on the show. It's been fun catching up with you. I don't remember the last time we spoke face to face. So it's been great to be able to catch up with you there. And I want to give you an opportunity to give any information you want to give about where people can find you on the internet or any other plugs you want to make for your own self.
Yeah. And sorry. Somebody wants to make a cameo.
No worries.
Oh, there you are. That's my little dude. This is Nash. Here's a tractor. This is my son Nash. He is awesome. He's not into beer yet. He's got a few years to go. So let's see here. So on the internet, just MG, literally M and G on both Twitter and Untappd and Instagram. So,
there you go. Very
except
cool.
Instagram is mostly just him. So can
Very
you
cool.
Nash, can you wave to everybody?
Say, hey, hi, Mash. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Matt. We appreciate it. And stay in touch. We'll be talking soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for watching. We really appreciate you tuning in on our special Wednesday edition. Tomorrow we're wrapping out our twice in a row now, 3 in a week, talking to Lindsay Hayes, Hoppy Hayes, who's a marketing expert at Untappd Brewing in Charlotte, North Carolina. All the great things about her Instagram account as she's been running for a long period of time, as well as some brewery marketing tips that she's learned over the years. So please pay attention to that. And check out untappd.tv for all the scheduling updates, who we're having on next week, another pair of amazing candidates, people that we're interviewing as well. It'll be awesome and fun. So we'll see you back here tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. And thanks for watching.